All right, I'm going to show you how to create a pumpkin with a glowing face in Illustrator, and we'll put a fun background in there too. This pumpkin I created from scratch, so I used the pen tool, the brush tool, the shape tool, and also used a few different effects. We'll also talk about stroke as well. So this is just my reference for you to take a look at. Your pumpkin can look a little different. If you want it to be a different color or a different face, you can customize it to your liking. So first things first, you're going to download the Make a Pumpkin AI file. So this is an Adobe Illustrator file. It's got a reference image set up for you. Yours will not look exactly like this, but this kind of gives you a framework for kind of what we're looking for size and for shapes of things. You can also reference the colors too. When you get into Illustrator, you might notice that you're not able to do anything, and that's because this layer is locked. It's on its own layer. So we're going to make a new layer right down here, create new layer. And this is the layer that you're going to start drawing on. We're actually going to start by creating the back part of the pumpkin first, and that's just going to help us with organizing our layers, and then we'll create the front part. So we're going to grab our ellipse tool. If you can't find it, you're going to right click. It's probably underneath your rectangle tool. Click on ellipse, and then you can go ahead and just create an ellipse shape, something kind of like that. We're kind of following the curve of the reference. Don't worry that it covers up this. We can always move it around later. And then I'm going to do Control C on the keyboard. That's to copy. And then Control V to paste. And that just makes another one. We'll put this one here. And I'm going to do Control V again. So Control V to paste. There we are, approximately. If you want it to be a little bit varied, you can also stretch that out. See how it kind of follows the curve there? I could make this go down a little bit, a little wider. It's okay if it's not 100%. Okay, so we have these three shapes. Now we don't want the stroke on all of these, but we do want it on the outside. So we are going to use the shape builder tool to combine all of these ellipses. So using this selection tool here, we're going to go ahead and just click and drag. That's going to highlight all three ellipses. And then we're going to look for this tool right here. It says shape builder. Go ahead and click on that. And then you'll literally just click and drag across your shapes. You're going to see how it's combining them into one shape. So this is a way to make a shape without having to use the pen tool. That looks pretty good. Don't worry about the bottom and what the bottom looks like because it's actually going to be behind everything else here. So that's the back of the pumpkin. I'm going to move this off to the side. That's the beauty of Illustrator. You can move things around and off to the side whenever you want. Now we're going to focus on the front part of the pumpkin. Same thing. We're going to grab our ellipse tool. I'm going to start with this middle one here, just kind of following the shape. And I'll show you how to organize your layers or your shapes. And one thing I should add to it, I had orange selected, but right here you can choose your color. So maybe I might just do a different color just to show you. Let's do like a lighter orange maybe. There you go. So lighter orange. Let's turn this one to a lighter orange. Let's just go like, I don't want it yellow, but just a little lighter. There we go. And then if you need to, you'll want to put a stroke in. You'll double click on this. This is your stroke color. I'm just doing black. And then you might need to go to Window Stroke if it's not already up. This is where you can control how thick the stroke is. So 3 points is my default. That's what I'm going to use for everything, just to create a more uniform look. Okay, so there is my first ellipse. Now I can do Control C, Control V. And here I'm just going to line it up again with this one, kind of that reference. So the other ones will be a little bit smaller. Control C, Control V, just to save some time. Again, lining it up with that edge, just kind of approximately. Okay. Now the nice thing is these two right here are actually pretty similar in size to these. So I'm going to do Control C, Control V, line those up, and then this one right here, Control C, Control V. All right. Now this looks kind of weird, kind of mushed up. We need to organize these a little bit. So I'm going to go ahead and click on that center one. So it's just selecting the center ellipse. I'm going to right click and go to Arrange, Bring to Front. We're bringing that to the front. This one, I'm going to right click and go to Arrange, Bring Forward. And then this one here, I'll say right click, Arrange, Bring Forward. So I'm just organizing them. Now this looks more like my reference where this is the center and then these are kind of overlapping. It's just the lines of the pumpkin. I'm not going to do a shape builder on this at all. However, I am going to click and drag to highlight all of these ellipses. And you can either go to Object Group, or you can just right click and say Group. What this does is it basically groups them all together, and you can always ungroup it at any time, but it just makes it easier. So I'm not able to grab individual pieces now. It just makes it a little bit easier. I'm going to show you how to do the 3D materials effects. We're going to go into Effect and then 3D materials, and we're going to go to Inflate. Let's see if it'll work here. Awesome, looks good. So this is kind of a fun thing to play with. If you don't want to do shading by hand, you can do it all through 3D and materials. So in here, I can adjust my lighting. I'm going to actually keep the lighting as is. I am going to adjust the color of my pumpkin though, and I might even adjust the depth too. So here you can kind of play around with like how deep the shading is. Like that seems a little too deep, so let's go a little bit less. You can play around with perspective as well and volume. You know, maybe I don't want it as shaded, a little less. Just kind of play around with it. You can decide what's best as long as you have that effect. Click out. I'm going to go ahead and click on that again. Let's change the color to a slightly darker orange here. Let's see if that, I kind of like that. Yeah, let's keep it like that. Okay, so I've applied this cool 3D effect. This piece here, if I put it back in, now you can see it's behind. So we're building our pumpkin, we're getting there. Now we need the stem, and we're gonna create the stem using the pen tool. So grab the regular pen tool. Again, we're on the same layer here. We don't need to worry about that. And I'm gonna go ahead and just maybe start right about down here and just start clicking. And I'm gonna follow this pattern. You can make your stem look a little different, but it should have some curves in it. Again, clicking and holding to create your curves. If it gives you a suggested curve and you're like, oh, I don't like that, go ahead and click on that last anchor point. Right now, I can't really see to trace. So I'm going to go into my properties. I'm going to drop the opacity down. That's just going to help me see a little better. Click and drag to create your curve. There we go. I'm going to go a little bit past, kind of like I did with the background, because we won't see that bottom part. Okay. Let's bring that opacity back up. The color's all wrong, so I'm going to change that to a green. Again, you choose the color. It doesn't have to be the exact same green that you see. Okay, we're getting there. It doesn't quite look right because this is on top. So we're going to right click on this and we're going to say arrange, send backward, because we just need it to be behind there. That looks good. And then you can decide if you want to do a 3D effect on this. Before I do that, I am going to adjust this because this looks too thin right here. There's something that just looks weird about that. So I'm going to grab my direct selection tool here. This is going to let me click on the anchors individually and just kind of make that adjustment. I might even adjust this a little bit. You can even adjust the handles. So you see how you can adjust the bend there. Move this over just a little bit. Yeah, I like that a little better. Oh, there's something up with this point here. Let's bump that out maybe. Yeah, I think that works. Now I'm going to grab that. We'll go ahead and just select it normally. We're going to do Effect, 3D and Materials. I'm going to do that Inflate again, and it should do the same Inflate that I used. Yep, looks pretty good. I'm going to drop the volume just a little bit. I don't want as much shading. That looks pretty good, I'd say. Something up with this edge here. I might go back into my direct selection. I think it's just my handle needs a little adjusting. We'll pull that out. That looks good. All right. We'll leave it. That's pretty close. It's okay if it's not exactly the same. I can always adjust it. I might even bring it down a little bit. For some reason, it just seems kind of tall. There we go. Okay, now we're going to do this fun little like loop-de-loop vine. I'm going to use the brush tool for that. Now, when you're using the brush tool in Illustrator, it's going to be the color of your stroke. So this one is a little bit brownish. I might even make mine a little brown-green, or just maybe like a dark green. And I'm going to go ahead and draw my little curly Q. Let's go ahead and I'll just start over here, kind of following the line. Okay, pretty good. Take that and I'm going to just say right click, arrange, send backwards so it's behind. Whoops, I might have to try that again. Arrange, send backward. Or maybe bring this one forward if it's, oh, now it's behind. Okay, put that right there, just so it's tucked behind the stem. I'm going to go into my layers. I'm going to turn off that reference because we really don't need the reference anymore. This looks pretty good. I think this orange, I'm going to darken this just because I did end up darkening that orange a little bit. There we go. Because if we look at our reference, this is darker behind. Yeah, I think that's all right. All right, so we're going to turn off our reference layer now, and now we're going to add a face. This is a great time to go ahead and say File, Save As. Save it on your computer as something new. Let's just call it Pumpkin 1. And that way, if you have to leave or the bell rings or something, you can come on back to it and you have a previous version to go back to. With the face, we're going to use the pen tool for that. So I'm going to grab that pen tool again. We'll go ahead. I'm just going to make a basic, classic carved, jack-o'-lantern face. I'm going to change the color, the fill color to yellow to make it look like it's illuminated inside. And I'm going to turn the stroke off. Whoops. There we go. So I just click on this little X, gets rid of the stroke for me. Okay. Now, right now, it's just kind of sitting there and it doesn't really look like it's part of the pumpkin right now. So I'm going to do a couple things. First thing, I'm going to go to Effect. And then this stylize right here. We're not doing Photoshop effects. We're doing Illustrator. So stylize. And then we're going to do feather. You don't have to adjust this too much. You can kind of see how it gets rid of stuff. So you don't want it to go too much. Let's go to here, we'll go back to what it was before. Stylize, feather. There we go. 0.0694 is a good place to be. Click OK. And then I'm also going to do Effect, Stylize, Outer Glow because I kind of want it to look like it's glowing. I am changing this color to white because I want it to be a lighter glow. I don't want it to be dark. My mode is normal. I set my opacity to 100 and blur is 0.125 and then click OK. So that looks like it's a little more part of the pumpkin. Now to make the other eye, all I have to do is select it and do Control C, Control V. And there's my other eye. I'm going to do the same thing again, Control V to make my nose because then I can just adjust it. Maybe do something like this for the nose. And then the mouth, which is probably the trickiest part with the pen tool. So feel free to take your time with it and play around with the shape. Whatever kind of mouth you really want, you do have to use the pen tool for it though. So you don't have to have teeth necessarily, but you do have to have the pen tool as your main tool. So I'm just going to go ahead. I'm going to click on that last point. Let's do a couple teeth here, kind of offset. Do another curve here. Click on that last point to get rid of that curve. So anytime you want to get rid of a curve, you just click on the last point. Click and drag. All right. Now we'll make the rest. So clicking and dragging to make curves. Don't forget that part. Cool. Kind of like the offset mouth. And the nice thing about this is you can actually shrink it down, move it around, adjust as needed. We're going to do the same exact thing with the effects. We're going to go up here, go to Stylize, Feather, click OK, Effect, Stylize, and Outer Glow. And it should keep your same settings that you used before. Awesome. This looks really good. I'm feeling good about it. At this point, it's not a bad idea to do File, Save. And the very last step you're going to do is you're going to put a background into here. So we're going to go into Pixabay. And I had it up, but I think I got rid of it. So let's go into Pixabay. We're going to look for a spooky background or just any background. How is that school appropriate? I'm going to type in spooky background, or you could do a Halloween background. Here we go. Let's see something that might make sense. Try to look for something that your neighbor isn't doing because everyone's going to do the first, 3 rows. Scroll down. Ooh, I kind of like this one. Let's do that one. Even though it's AI generated, I'll let that go. All right, we're going to click download. And then we can go into Illustrator. We're going to do File, Place. We're going to place this. Oh, before I do that, let me make a new layer. I like to just have the flexibility of a separate layer for my background. Okay, File, Place. And click. You can move it to where you want it to be. You can shrink it down too if you don't want it to be that big. Kind of like that. Awesome. Let me zoom out a little bit here. And I should be able to crop this image. Let's see if it'll let me do it. Here we go. Ooh, I don't want to crop that there, but I am going to crop this top part because I just want to kind of keep those same dimensions that I had before. probably pretty good. I'll hit enter on the keyboard. There. Awesome. Okay, so I have my background here. I have my layer 2 here. If I click and drag, whoops, let's lock that one. If I click and drag over everything, I can then move it to where I want. I can even resize it without losing any quality, which is always great. Just give it a minute because it'll redo its 3D stuff. Awesome. So from here to actually submit it now, so I'm going to do file save just to save the AI file, but I'm going to submit it by exporting it. So I'm going to do file and then export. We're going to do export as. PNG is great, but you could also do JPEG. So either one of those is fine, either image file. I'll click PNG and we'll just say export. And then I like to do a little bit higher quality. Let's do medium and then click OK. And then from here, you're going to upload your PNG. I should have my exported PNG now. Let's take a look at it. Beautiful. And you can feel really good about illustrating that entire pumpkin yourself without really having to do anything else. You did have the reference, but it's a good skill to have with all, using the pen tool and the shape tool, learning those effects. And that'll take you really far with using Illustrator in the future.